Objectives. The main motive of this chapter is to get an understanding about the principles of management and to know about various management functions like planning, organizing, and staffing. Outcomes. After the completion of this chapter, the students will be able to explain principles of management and various management functions like planning, organizing, and staffing, which is very much essential for the better functioning of the organization. Planning. The management functions like planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling are very much essential to achieve organizational objectives. If objectives are not set, then there is nothing to organize, direct, and control. An organization has to specify what it has to achieve. Planning is related with this aspect. Every person, whether in business or not, has to frame plans during his life. The plan period may be short or long. One of the characteristics of human being is that he plans. Planning is the first and foremost function of management. According to Coons and O'Donnell, planning is deciding in advance what to do, how to do, when to do it, and who is to do it. It bridges the gap from where we are and to where we want to go. It is the essence of exercise of foresight. Nature of planning. Planning is the beginning of process of management. A manager must plan before he can positively organize, staff, direct or control. Planning sets all other functions into action. Planning is the most basic form of management. Planning is a rational approach for defining where one stands, where one wants to go in future and how to reach there. Planning is an intellectual process. Planning requires manager to think before acting. It is thinking in advance. It is by planning managers of organization decides what is to be done, when it is to be done, how it is to be done and who has to do it. Decision making is an integral part of planning. It is a process of choosing among alternatives. Obviously, decision making will occur at many points in the planning process. Planning is a continuous process. Planning is a continuous process like a navigator constantly checks where his ship is going in vast ocean. A manager must constantly watch the progress of planning. He must constantly monitor the conditions both within and outside the organization to determine if the changes are required in his plan. Planning is called principle of navigational change. A plan must be flexible. By flexibility, we mean that it is the ability to change direction to adapt to changing situations without undue cost. The plans must be flexible to adapt to changes in technology, market, finance, personnel, and organizational factors. Flexibility in technology means mechanical ability of a company to change and vary its product mix according to changing needs of its customers. Flexibility in market means company's ability to obtain additional funds on favorable terms whenever it is required. Flexibility in personnel means the company's ability to shift individuals from one job to another. Flexibility in organization means the company's ability to change the organization structure. However, flexibility is possible only within limits because it involves extra cost. Sometimes the benefit of flexibility may not be worth the cost. Planning is all pervasive function. Planning is pervasive and it extends throughout the organization. Planning is the fundamental management function and every manager irrespective of his level has a planning function to perform within his particular area of activities. Top management is responsible for overall objectives and action of the organization. Therefore, it must plan Therefore, he must plan what these objectives should be and how to achieve them. Similarly, a departmental head has to devise the objectives of his department within the organizational objectives and also the methods to achieve them. Importance of planning. Without planning, business decisions would become random choices. Planning is therefore important for the following reasons. It minimizes risk and uncertainty. By providing a more rational, fact based procedure for making decisions, planning allows managers and organizations to minimize risk and uncertainty. It does not deal with future decisions but in futurity of present decisions. If a manager does not make any provision for replacement of plant and machinery, the problems he will have to face after 10 years can well be imagined. The manager has a feeling of being in control if he has anticipated some of the possible consequences and has planned for them. It is like going out with an umbrella in cloudy weather. It is to planning that manager relates the uncertainties and possibilities of tomorrow to the facts of today and yesterday. Planning leads to success. Planning does not guarantee success, but studies have shown that often things being equal, companies which plan not only outperform non-planners but also their past results. This may be because when a businessman's actions are not random, arising as mere reaction to marketplace, planning leads to success by doing beyond mere adaptation to market fluctuations. With the help of sound plan, management can act proactively and not simply react. It involves to attempt to shape the environment on the belief that business is not just the creation of environment but its creator as well. Planning focuses on organization's goals. Planning helps the manager to focus his attention on the organization goals and activities. It makes it easier to apply and coordinate the resources of the organization more economically. The whole organization is forced to embrace identical goals and collaborate in achieving them. It also enables the manager to chalk out in advance an orderly sequence of steps for the realization of organization goals and to avoid needless overlapping of activities. Planning facilitates control. In planning, the manager sets goals and develops plans and to accomplish these goals. These goals and plans then become standards against which performance can be measured. The function of control is to ensure that activities conform to the plans. Thus, control can be exercised only if there are plans. Planning trains executives. Planning is also an excellent means for training executives. They become involved in the activities of the organization and the plans arouse their interest in multifarious aspects of planning. The process of planning may be classified into different categories on the following basis. Based on the coverage of activity, it is classified as corporate and functional planning. Based on the importance of contents, it is classified as strategic and tactical or operational planning. And based on the time period involved, it can be classified as long term and short term planning. And if it is based on approach that is adopted, planning is classified as proactive and reactive planning. It is classified as formal and informal planning based on the degree of formalization. Strategic plans set out the overall direction of the organization in which it wants to proceed in future. It involves deciding what the major goals of the entire organization will be and what policies will guide the organization in its pursuit of these goals. Strategic planning involves a time horizon of more than 1 year, and for most organizations, it ranges between 5 to 10 years. Examples of strategic planning may be diversification of business into new lines, planned growth rate in sales, etc. Tactical planning.
One more
Tactical planning
example,
involves
the
deciding
strategy of
specifically
Lakshmi
how the
Vikas
resources
Mittal
of the
Group for the
organization
past
will be
decade has
used
been
to
to
help the
grow
organization achieve
inorganically by
these strategic
acquisitions of
goals.
steel
For
companies
example, if the
worldwide. The
organization has
successful
prepared a
acquisition
10-year
of
strategic plan
Luxembourg-based
which
Arcelor in
envisages a profit rate
2006
of
was a tactical
25%
plan
on
in
capital
line with
employed in
its
the
overall
10th year,
strategy,
it
through
also
which
it is
Mittal
also
Steel acquired
necessary to
many
prepare
plants
a
over
more
the
detailed
years in
tactical plan
Mexico,
for the
Canada,
next year
Germany,
with a
and
specific target
Kazakhstan.
of 10% on the capital employed. Here is a table that shows the distinction between strategic and tactical planning. Strategic planning. It decides major goals and policies of allocation of resources to achieve these goals. It also it is also done at higher levels of management. Middle level managers are sometimes not even aware that strategic plan is being considered. It is a long-term process and it is generally based on long-term forecasts about technology, political environment and it is more uncertain. It is less detailed because it is not involved with the day-to-day operations of the organization. Tactical planning. It decides the detailed use of resources for achieving these goals. It is done at lower levels of management and it is short-term planning. It is generally based on the past performance of the organization and is less uncertain. It is more detailed because it is involved with the day-to-day operations of the organization. Types of plans. Plans are arranged in a hierarchy within the organization. At the top of the hierarchy stands the objectives. Objectives are nothing but broad ends of the organization which are achieved by means of strategies. Strategies in turn are carried out by means of two other major groups of plans, single use plans and standing plans. Single use plans, as their name suggests, are developed to achieve a specific end. When that end is reached, the plan is dissolved. The major types of single use plans are programs and budgets. Standing plans, on the other hand, are designed for situations that recur often enough to justify a standardized approach. For example, it would be inefficient for a bank to develop a single use plan for processing a loan application of each new client. Instead, it uses one standing plan that anticipates in advance whether to approve or turn down any request based on the information furnished, credit rating, and the like. Major types of standing plans are policies, procedures, methods, and rules. Objectives. Objectives are goals or aims which the management wishes the organization to achieve. These are the endpoints towards which all business activities like organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling are directed. Only after having defined these endpoints can the manager determine the kind of organization, the kind of personnel and their qualification, the kind of motivation, supervision and direction, and the kind of control techniques which he must employ to reach these points. Objectives should be distinguished from three other words: vision, purpose, and mission. Objective versus vision. Vision is a dream that an entrepreneur creates in his waking hours of his preferred future. It is, in fact, the root of all objectives. Objective versus purpose. Purpose of an organization is its primary role defined by the society in which it operates. For example, the purpose of every university is to impart education, or the purpose of every hospital is to provide health care. Purpose is therefore a broad aim that applies not only to a given organization but to all organizations of its type in that society. Objective versus mission. Mission of an organization is a unique aim that sets the organization apart from others of its type. It is organization's specialization in some area, like service, product, or client, which decides the organization's scope of business. Here we'll see an example of objectives, purpose, vision, and mission of educational institute. The objectives of the educational institute is to increase number of intake by 10% by December 2020. To achieve 100% placement in the current year is the next objective. Purpose is to impart good education. Vision is what the business future will look like, to be an engineering institute of highest repute and produce world-class engineers catering to the needs of the mankind. Mission is provide right environment to develop quality education for all irrespective of caste, creed or religion and to produce future leaders. Also to create opportunities for pursuit of knowledge and all-round development of the student. To impart value education to students to build sense of integrity, honesty and ethics. Characteristics of the objectives. Some of the important characteristics of the objectives are multiple in number. That is, every business enterprise has a package of objectives set out in various key areas. There are 8 key areas in which objectives of performance and results are set. They are market standing, innovation, productivity, physical and financial resources, profitability, manager performance and development, worker performance, attitude and public responsibility. The second characteristic is objectives are either tangible or intangible. For some objectives, such as in the areas of market standing, productivity, and physical and financial resources, there are quantifiable values available. Other areas of objectives are not readily quantifiable and are intangible, such as managers' performance, workers' morale, public responsibility, etc. The third objective is objective have a priorities. This implies that at one particular given point of time, the accomplishment of one objective is relatively more important than others. Priority of goals also says something about the relative importance of certain goals regardless of time. For example, the survival of organization is necessary condition for the realization of other goals. The establishment of priorities is extremely important in that resources of any organization must be allocated by rational means. The fourth characteristic is objectives are generally arranged in a hierarchy. This means that we have corporate objectives of the total enterprise at the top, followed by divisional or departmental objectives, then each section and finally individual objectives. Objectives at all levels serve as the end and as a means. The fifth objective is objectives sometimes clash with each other. The process of breaking down the enterprise into units requires that objectives be assigned to each unit, where each unit is given the responsibility of attaining the assigned objective. The process of allocating objectives among the units creates the problem of potential goal conflict and suboptimization, wherein achieving the goals of one unit may put in risk of achieving goals of the other. Requirements of sound objectives or requirements of good objectives. The requirements of good objectives are objectives must be clear and acceptable, objectives must support one another, objectives must be precise and measurable, and objectives should always remain valid. The first one, objectives must be clear and acceptable. The objectives must be clear and understandable amongst people, which could be achieved by unambiguous communication, should be compatible with their individual goals. The second one, objectives must support one another. Objectives could interlock or interfere with one another, which require the need for coordination and balancing the activities of the entire organization. Otherwise, its members may pursue different paths, making it difficult for the manager to achieve the company's overall objectives. The third one, objectives must be precise and measurable. An objective must be spelled out in precise, measurable terms, the reason for which being the more precise and measurable goal, the easier it is to decide the way of achieving it. The precise and measurable goals are better motivators of people than general goals. Precise and general goals make it easier for lower level managers to develop their own plans for actually achieving these goals, and it is easier for managers to ascertain whether they are succeeding or failing if their goals are precise and measurable. The last objective should always remain valid. It means that managers should constantly review, reassess, and adjust them according to the changed conditions. The next topic is advantages of objectives. The following are the benefits of objectives. The first one is they provide a basis for planning and for developing other types of plans such as policies, budgets, and procedures. The second advantage is they act as motivators for individuals and departments of enterprise, imbuing their activities with a sense of purpose. The third advantage is they eliminate haphazard action, which may result in undesirable consequences. The fourth benefit is they facilitate coordinated behavior of various groups which otherwise may pull in different directions. The fifth advantage is they function as a basis for managerial control by serving as standards against which actual performance can be measured. The sixth advantage is they facilitate better management of the enterprise by providing a basis for leading, guiding, directing, and controlling the activities of people of various departments. The seventh benefit is they lessen misunderstanding and other conflict and facilitate communication among people by minimizing jurisdictional disputes. And the last advantage is they provide legitimacy to organizations' activities. Strategies. A corporate strategy is a plan which considers environmental opportunities and threats and organizational strengths and weaknesses and provides optimal match between the firm and the environment. The two important activities involved in strategy formation are environmental appraisal and corporate appraisal. Environmental appraisal. An analysis of relevant environment results in the identification of threats and opportunities. The key environment factors which need to be studied are political and legal factors. Some of the political and legal factors are stability of the government and its political philosophy, taxation and industrial licensing laws, monetary and fiscal policies, and restrictions on capital movement and repartition of capital and state trading, etc. The second key factor is economic factors. Some of the economic factors are level of economic development and distribution of income, trends in prices, exchange rates, balance of payments, and supply of labor, raw material, capital, etc. The third key factor is competitive factors. Some of the competitive factors are identifying principal competitors and analysis of their performance and programmers in major areas, anti-monopoly laws and rules of competition, and the third one is protection of patents, trademarks, brand names, and other industrial property rights. The last key factor is social and cultural factors. Literacy levels of population, religious and social characteristics, extent and rate urbanization, rate of social change. These are some of the social and cultural factors. Corporate appraisal. Corporate appraisal involves the analysis of company's strengths and weaknesses. A company's strength may lie in an outstanding leadership, excellent product design, low cost manufacturing skill, efficient distribution, efficient customer service, personal relationship with customers, efficient transportation and logistics, effective sales promotion, high turnover of inventories and capital, etc. The company must plan to exploit these strengths to the maximum. Similarly, it may suffer from a number of other weaknesses. The company should take measurements to see to it that these weaknesses are le- minimized.
Policies. A policy is a general guideline for decision making. It sets up boundaries around which decisions can be made. In doing so, it channelizes the thinking of the organization members so that it is consistent with and contributed to the organizational objectives. In the words of George R. Terry, policy is a verbal, written, or implied overall guide setting up boundaries that supply the general limits and direction in which managerial action will take place. Although policies deal with how to do the work, they do not dictate terms to the subordinates. They only provide a framework within which decisions must be made by the management in different spheres. For example, recruitment policy of a company is to recruit meritorious people through employment exchange, or advertisement policy of a company is to avoid cutthroat competition with its rivals in the field, or distribution policy of a fertilizer company is farmer oriented. Types of policies. Policies may be variously classified on the basis of source, basis of function, or organizational level. Classification on basis of sources. On this basis, policies may be divided into originated, appealed, implied, and externally imposed policies. Originated policies means these are policies which are usually established formally and deliberately by top managers for the purpose of guiding the actions of their subordinates and also their own. These policies are generally set down in print and embodied in a manual. Appeal policies. Appeal policies are those which arise from the appeal made by a subordinate to his superior regarding the manner of handling a given situation. When decisions are made by superior on appeals made by the subordinates, they become precedented for future action. For example, in a company, if it allows a discount of 2% to its buyers, if any customer states that he is willing to purchase in large quantities and is prepared to pay part or the price in advance, provided he is allowed 2.5% discount, then the sales manager, not knowing what to do, may approach the general manager for his advice. If the general manager accepts the proposal for 2.5% discount, the decision of general manager could become a guideline for the sales manager in future. This policy is called as appeal policy. Implied policy. There are policies which are stated neither in writing nor verbally. Such policies are called implied policies. Only by watching the actual behavior of various superiors in specific situations can the presence of implied policy be ascertained. For example, if office space is repeatedly assigned to individuals on the basis of seniority, this becomes an implied policy. Externally imposed policies. Policies are sometimes imposed on business by external agencies such as government, trade associations, and trade unions. For example, a policy might have been dictated by the government law regulating prices or by a decision of a mill owners association limiting production or by a decision of trade union to fill up higher posts only by promoting existing employees. Classification on basis of functions. On this basis, on the basis of business functions, policies may be classified into production, sales, personnel, etc. Every one of these functions will have a number of policies. For example, sales function may have policies relating to market, price, packaging, distribution channel, commission to middlemen, etc. Production function may have policies relating to method of production, output, inventory, research, etc. Financial function may have policies relating to capital structure, working capital, internal financing, dividend payment, etc. Personnel function may have policies relating to recruitment, training, working condition, welfare activities, etc. Classification on the basis of organizational level. On this basis, policies may range from major company policies through major departmental policies to minor or derivative policies applicable to a smallest segment of the organization.
Advantages of policies. Policies ensure uniformity of action at various organization points, which makes actions more predictable. They speed up decisions at lower levels because subordinates need not consult their superiors frequently. It also makes superior to delegate more and more authority to his subordinates without being unduly concerned because he knows that whatever decision the subordinates make will be within the boundaries of the policies. Policies give a practical shape to the objectives by directing the way in which the predetermined objectives are to be attained.
Procedures. Procedure provides a detailed set of instructions for performing a sequence of actions involved in doing a certain piece of work. The same steps are followed each time that activity is performed. For example, the procedure for purchasing raw material may be requisition from storekeeper to the purchasing department, then calling tenders for purchase of materials, later placing orders with suppliers who are selected, and inspecting the materials purchased by the inspecting department, and making payment to the supplier of materials by account departments. Similarly, procedure for recruitment of personnel may be inviting applications through advertisement, then screening the applications, then conducting written test, then conducting interview for those who have passed the written test, and finally conducting medical examination of those who are selected for the post. Procedures may also exist for conducting the meetings of directors and shareholders, granting loans to employees, issuing raw materials from stores department, granting sick leave to the employees, passing bills by the accounts department, and so on. The advantages of procedures are they indicate a standard way of performing a task, thus ensuring high level of uniformity of performance in the enterprise. They facilitate executive control over performance. By laying down the sequence and timing of each work, executives' dependence on personal attribute of his subordinates is reduced. Supervision becomes more routine and discipline is externalized. Finally, they enable employees to improve their efficiency by providing them with good knowledge about the entire range of work. Policy versus procedure. Policies are general guidelines to both thinking and action of the people at higher levels, whereas procedures are guidelines to action for people at lower levels. Policies help fulfilling the organizational objectives, whereas procedures show the way to implement the policies. Policies are general and broad and allow some latitude in decision making, but procedures are specific and do not show latitude. That is, there is no scope for compromisation. Policies are oftenly established without any study or analysis, whereas procedures are always established after thorough study and analysis of work. Methods. Method is a prescribed way in which each step of a procedure is to be performed. The specified technique to be used in screening the applications, or conducting a written test is a method that is selected for discharging a particular step under the existing conditions may become outdated in due course of time because of discovery of better and more economical methods. The need for better and economical methods of operation is great because of the pressure of competition in the markets for products of the concern. Methods help in increasing effectiveness and usefulness of the procedure. By improving the methods, it reduces fatigue, it, there is better productivity and lower costs can be achieved. Methods can be improved in a number of ways. Manual methods of performing a task can be replaced by mechanical means, or existing mechanized process may be improved, or work simplified and unproductive efforts can be removed by conducting motion study. Rules. Rules are detailed and recorded instructions that a specific action must or must not be performed in a given situation. In sanctioning overtime to workmen, in regulating traveling allowances, in sanctioning entertainment bills, and in other similar matters, a uniform way of handling them or dealing with the case has to be followed. These are all covered by the rules of the enterprise, the objective of which is to avoid repeated reference to higher levels for authorization of routine matters which occur frequently. Rules also bring predictability like procedures. They make sure that a job is done in the same manner every time, bringing uniformity in efforts and results.
Program. It is a schedule or an ordered list of events or precise plans or definite steps in a proper sequence which need to be taken to discharge a given task. It lays down the time to be taken for completion of each and every step. Here, every single step in a program is set up as a project. For example, in an inauguration program for a new facility which includes ribbon cutting, speeches by key officials or invited guests, tours of new facility for the guests, etc. in a predetermined sequence. Budget. Budget is a financial or quantitative statement prepared prior to a definite period of time. It predicts sources and amounts of income and how much they are used for a specific organization, activity, or department. It also provides a standard by which actual operations can be measured and variations can be detected and also controlled. Important types of budgets are sales budgets, production budgets, cash budgets, revenue budgets, expense budgets, etc. For example, an annual budget is announced by the Union Railways Ministry for the Indian Railways. Every year, the railway budget has some unique features or the other which distinguish it from the budgets of the previous years.
Before we conclude, we'll have a quick recap. After the video session, the students will be able to define what is planning and also identify its importance. The students will be able to explain different types of planning like strategic and tactical planning and also identify various single use and standing plans.